I always found it amusing how people cling to quiet beginnings, as if silence could shield them from the roar waiting inside their own chest. You feel it, that restless shake beneath your ribs, that rising pressure begging to break form. You tried to ignore it, but the whisper kept clawing its way back. And now here you are, finally ready to let the storm speak. They told you to stay small, stay soft, stay easy to predict. But storms don't ask for permission. Storms don't request approval. They arrive with a presence that rattles windows. And you, my friend, are learning to enter rooms with the same force. The kind that makes people glance twice. The kind that leaves them wondering what shifted, what changed, what you've become. You've spent years sitting behind your own shadow, convincing yourself it was safer there. But shadows only grow when the light behind you sharpens. Ironic, isn't it? While they underestimated you, you were gathering edge, collecting fragments of your own strength, preparing for the moment you'd stop hiding from your own reflection. And now your silence has teeth. Real teeth. The kind that makes doubters step back. Every storm begins with a fracture in the sky, a tiny tear that widens until everything breaks free. You are standing at that tear right now. You can feel it stretching. You can feel your old limits ripping apart. It doesn't matter who questioned you. It doesn't matter who tried to box you in. What matters is the pressure building behind your ribs, the kind that refuses to stay trapped, the kind that finally chooses to rise. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them scramble to explain how you shifted from overlooked to unnerving. They'll try to rationalize it. They'll try to trace your steps. But you and I both know, storms don't leave footprints. They leave impact. And impact is exactly what you're about to deliver. Not with noise, but with presence, with intent, with that sharp twist in your smile that says you've made your choice. Funny how they thought your silence was surrender. As if quiet meant shrinking. As if keeping your head down meant you'd given up the fire tucked behind your ribs. They never understood that stillness can be strategy, that waiting can be a weapon. You learned to pull every slight into your chest and compress it until the pressure hummed like a secret engine, ready to break open. They didn't see the way your mind sharpened in the shadows. They didn't notice the twist in your smile when people doubted you. Pressure changes shape when you hold it long enough. It becomes hunger. It becomes focus. It becomes that strange calm that sits on your shoulder and whispers that your moment is closer than they think. And when that moment comes, they'll panic. They always do when the quiet one starts to move. You were never falling behind. You were storing energy, letting it stack, layer by layer, day by day. Every dismissal carved a new angle into your resolve. Every closed door taught you to carve your own openings. You learned to rise without making a sound. You learned to think without chasing approval. That's why they struggle to explain you now. They don't understand pressure. They don't understand what it forges. They don't understand how someone they ignored built a force they can't measure. See, when they overlook you, they give you space. Space to study, space to adapt, space to rebuild the parts of yourself that were softened by their expectations. You stopped bending. You stopped apologizing. You stopped shrinking. And as that pressure kept growing inside you, it began to glow. Not brightly, not loudly, but with a steady burn that refuses to flicker. People fear what rises quietly. It unnerves them. It exposes what they missed. And now look at you. Every move deliberate. Every thought sharper than the last. You walk with a weight they never saw coming. The kind of presence that makes people rethink their assumptions. The kind that makes them whisper instead of speak. They're trying to trace your steps, trying to decode your shift, but they won't find the secret, because the secret was never loud. It was pressure, pure pressure. And pressure always turns into power when held long enough. People love patterns because patterns soothe them, but you were never born to soothe anyone. Your silence has changed shape, sharpening at the edges like a smile holding back a secret. They watch you now, not because they care, but because they can't quite place what's different. You move with a calm that rattles them. You think with a depth they can't reach. And unpredictability, well, that's the part that stains their confidence. They keep guessing your next step, as if you're a puzzle waiting to be solved. But puzzles have rules, and you don't. You walk through their expectations like smoke slipping through fingers. Every shift in your tone becomes a riddle. Every pause becomes a question. Their minds twitch with the tension of it. They want clarity, but clarity is the one thing you'll never hand them. Let them flinch. Let them swallow the uncertainty. It tastes bitter for a reason. You learned long ago that predictability breeds comfort, and comfort dims ambition. So you shed the version of yourself they understood. You let mystery settle across your shoulders like a second shadow, a quiet kind of power, a patient kind of edge. You speak only when necessary, and even then your words twist like a door half opened. They lean in to catch your meaning, but the meaning slips sideways. It keeps them awake. It keeps you ahead. Unpredictability isn't chaos. It's design. It's the art of reshaping your presence until people second-guess their assumptions. You mastered that art without even trying. One moment you're calm as still water. The next, your focus cuts through the room with a blade-like chill. They fear that shift because they don't know what triggers it. They don't know what you've learned. They don't know how much you see. And that uncertainty, it's your finest weapon. You've become the kind of presence people avoid underestimating, the kind they observe from the corner of their eye. They whisper about the change but can't decide if you've risen or transformed. The beauty is simple. You never confirm a thing. You let their imagination build the legend for you. Because in a world obsessed with predicting outcomes, the mind they can't decode is the one they respect, the one they fear, the one they remember, long after you leave the room. Funny how approval feels warm until you realize it's just a leash. You carried it for years without noticing the weight. Their opinions, their expectations, their tiny rules stitched into your spine. But the moment you stepped back, everything shifted. The air felt different, sharper, cleaner. You heard your own thoughts for the first time, without their noise pressing against your skull. And that silence rewired you. You stopped waiting for nods that never came. You stopped twisting yourself into shapes that pleased them. Something inside cracked open, not violently, not loudly, just a quiet break that changed everything. Suddenly your voice didn't tremble when you used it. Your eyes didn't lower when they judged. You learned to breathe without asking permission. And when that breath settled, a new presence filled your chest. A presence they didn't recognize. A creature they never prepared for. Approval had always been a bargain. you didn't need. Once you let go, the world shifted from a crowd to a mirror. Every reflection showed parts of you that had been buried under their opinions. You saw the sharp lines, the calm edge, the focused mind that had been waiting beneath the surface. And you realized something almost amusing. You didn't need to impress anyone. You didn't need to perform. You only needed to return to the version of yourself you'd been suppressing, the version that walked with intention instead of apology. Now people look at you differently. Not because you changed your words, but because you changed your tone. A tone that no longer bends. A tone that lands with quiet certainty. They sense the shift even if they can't name it. They whisper theories. They invent explanations. They try to label the creature you've become, but creatures born from self-clarity don't fit inside labels. You stepped out of their narrow logic the moment you stopped chasing approval. And once you step out, you never walk back. Your presence has a new weight now. Not heavy, not loud, just defined. You carry yourself like someone who finally understands the cost of bending, the cost of pleasing, the cost of shrinking. And when they see you now, standing in your own shape, they realize something unsettling. You didn't lose them. You simply outgrew the need for them. That's what rebirth looks like. Quiet, precise, inevitable. How people think growth means adding more tasks, more noise, more pressure. But you learned a different trick. You learned that real strength comes from cutting away everything that dulls your edge, every excuse, every distraction, every voice that talks you out of your own fire. When you start subtracting, you feel lighter in a way that isn't soft. It's sharp. It's deliberate. It's the beginning of steel. You removed the habits that drained you, the people who blurred your focus, the thoughts that tied your feet to the floor. One by one, you dropped them like weights you were never meant to carry. And with each piece gone, something inside you tightened. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it forms quietly, in the empty spaces you carve out of your own chaos. And when those spaces settle, clarity appears. Clarity with edges that cut. You stopped filling your time with noise that fed nothing. You stopped chasing the illusion of being busy. You stepped back, stepped inward, and found the parts of yourself you had buried under obligations that never belonged to you. The more you released, the more precise you became. Your thoughts aligned, your goals sharpened, your energy stopped leaking into places unworthy of it. That's the irony they never teach you. Less creates more. Subtraction builds strength. Absence builds focus. Now you walk different. Not heavier. Not louder. Just exact. Every step measured. Every word chosen. Every move sharpened by the weight you no longer carry. People look at you and try to guess what changed. They expect an addition, a new rule, a new habit, a new philosophy. But the truth sits quietly behind your eyes. You didn't add anything. You only removed what weakened you. You carved away the rust, and what remained was the steel you'd forgotten you had. And when they feel your presence now, they sense the difference instantly. It's the steadiness, the control, the calm that comes from someone who refuses to be pulled in 100 directions anymore. You trimmed your life down to the essentials, to the core, to the blade. And blades don't need noise. Blades don't need approval. Blades don't need excess. They only need space. Space to cut. Space to rise. space to claim their shape without bending. People assume fury is the threat. The shaking fists, the raised voice, the burning eyes. They think chaos screams. But the real danger is quieter, colder. It waits in the stillness before a choice. You discovered that silence when your anger finally emptied out, when nothing moved inside you except thought. Sharp thought, focused thought. The kind of thought that can't be steered or softened by emotion. You learned that calm isn't softness. Calm is control. Calm is the ability to watch everything fall apart without letting a single piece touch your pulse. While others crumble under the shock of pressure, you breathe through it. You calculate, you dissect. And there's something unsettling in that. Something that makes people step back when they look you in the eyes. Because calm removes the mask. It reveals the truth behind your intentions. Rage is predictable. It has patterns. It exposes weakness. But calm rewrites the script. Calm lets you see the cracks in a situation long before anyone notices they exist. It lets you turn tension into structure. It lets you catch openings no frantic mind could ever spot. You understand that now. You stand in the center of storms and feel nothing pulling you apart. Your thoughts move cleanly. Your choices land with precision. Even your silence speaks with intent. People expect noise when they push you. They want the reaction. They want the outburst. They want proof they still have influence over your mind. But all they get is stillness. A stillness that makes them question their own steps. A stillness that drains their confidence. They don't understand where your composure comes from. They can't decode how you stay level while everything around you bends. And that confusion is power. You've become the type who doesn't need to raise their voice to make a point. The weight of your presence does it for you. You think before you strike. You breathe before you decide. You move only when the moment is right. Calm has reshaped you into something sharper than fury. Something leaner. Something focused. No wasted energy. No scattered emotion. Just clarity cutting through noise. And when they see you now, they finally understand the truth. Fury may burn fast, but calm endures. Calm outthinks. Calm outmaneuvers. Calm rewrites outcomes without ever raising its tone. That's why your mind terrifies them. Not because it's loud, but because it's steady. Steady enough to choose exactly how high you rise next. They want every move labeled, every choice boxed, every thought traced like a straight line. But you were never meant for straight lines. You're the curve in the corner, the flicker they can't hold, the shift they can't decode. And the more they try to understand you, the more their certainty fractures. That fracture is delicious. It tells you you're no longer predictable. You're becoming something they can't map, even if they tried. Let them whisper. Let them analyze. Let them turn your silence into theories. Because mystery does something. Noise never can. It makes people lean in. It makes them cautious. It makes their confidence falter just enough for you to walk right through their assumptions without lifting a finger. You mastered that without effort. A slight pause, a half smile, a sentence cut short. Suddenly they're spinning ideas in their own heads, trying to fill the gaps you intentionally leave behind. Mystery isn't about hiding. It's about choosing what you reveal. A controlled leak of intention, a measured drip of presence. You don't have to explain your growth. You don't have to justify your shifts. You only have to move with precision and let the world break its own mind trying to figure out the source. They think silence is weakness, but silence has teeth when used correctly. Sharp teeth, quiet teeth, teeth that turn confusion into caution, and caution into respect. You've outgrown the need to be understood. That's why your methods look strange to those who still think survival means fitting in. But you've learned better. You've learned that power gathers in the shadows of uncertainty, that influence grows in the spaces where others can't predict your next step. They call it strange. They call it risky. They call it impulsive. But deep down, they know the truth. Mystery is movement they can't track, and movement they can't track is movement they can't stop. So, you've felt it. That fire lurking beneath the surface, the storm they'll never see coming. This is only the beginning. The deeper you go, the sharper the edge. Every secret, every strategy, every twisted truth waits for you in the rest of the video. Don't stop now. Stay with me. Watch it all. Absorb it. Let it change the way you move, think, and strike. There's a moment life stops pretending it's gentle. A moment it looks you in the eyes and flinches first. That was your December 5th, the day the truth blinked. The day something inside you cracked open like a hidden door you never knew you were guarding. And the world, oh, the world felt the shift before you even named it. You ever notice how silence gets heavier right before something powerful rises? People felt it. They didn't admit it. They just watched you closer, like they were trying to memorize the old version of you before it vanished forever. You weren't loud. You weren't dramatic. You just breathed differently, moved differently, thought differently. And that was enough to make others lean back as if they touched a spark they didn't expect. December 5 wasn't a miracle. It was a knife-edge moment, a collision between who you were taught to be and who you were tired of pretending to be. It's strange, isn't it? How one quiet decision can ripple through every corner of your life. You stopped lowering your tone just to be accepted. You stopped shrinking so others could feel tall. You stopped apologizing for the fire you carried, and suddenly the air around you changed shape. People call it attitude, but you know better. It's awareness, the kind that hits you like a collision in a dim room, when you realize you've been handing out pieces of your strength like free samples, and wondering why you felt hollow. December 5 reminded you of the truth, your truth, the one you kept burying under excuses, the one that whispered, enough. Funny how a whisper can move heavier than a shout. And that's when fear started blooming in places you didn't expect. Not in you, in them. Because people don't fear monsters. They fear the quiet, the composed, the ones who see without reacting, the ones who think before they strike. You didn't raise your voice. You raised your standards. You didn't pick a fight. You simply stopped losing them. And that unsettled anyone who benefited from your silence. So here you stand, on the ashes of your own hesitation. Calm, focused, different, not heroic, not cruel, just aware. Aware of what you allowed, aware of what you deserve, aware of what December 5 revealed. And deep down, you know the truth they're afraid to say out loud. You're no longer the one who bends. You're the one who watches and chooses. There's a strange kind of strength that hides behind quiet moments. The kind that makes the room feel smaller when you walk in. You didn't shout your progress. You didn't announce your rise. You just moved differently. And people noticed it before you even admitted it to yourself. They pretended they didn't feel it, but their eyes gave them away. Silence is a weapon. Most people don't know how to hold, but you learned, slowly, sharply. You realized applause was a trap dressed as affection, a rope disguised as praise. Applause trains you to wait for permission. Silence trains you to build without expecting a pat on the back. You chose the second one, and that choice rewired the atmosphere around you. You see, the world loves a predictable mind, a mind that explains every decision, a mind that justifies every step. Once you stopped explaining, they started guessing, and guessing leads to fear. Because people fear what doesn't obey their expectations. Your silence became a mirror that showed them their doubts, their insecurities, their limits. And mirrors are uncomfortable things. You didn't retreat. You recalibrated. You pulled your energy back from people who only came around when they needed a piece of you. You stopped handing out clarity like a free souvenir, and suddenly, you became harder to read, harder to label, harder to use. That quiet shift carried more weight than any speech you could have delivered. It was the kind of shift that echoes long after the moment ends. The world envies the one who doesn't ask for reassurance. Your silence wasn't emptiness. It was construction, a mind sharpening itself behind closed doors, a spirit strengthening its boundaries, a focus returning to its rightful place. And while they whispered, you built. While they doubted, you learned. While they waited for you to slip, you tightened your grip on your own path. Power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg to be seen. It grows in hidden corners, in late nights, in questions you force yourself to answer honestly. You became your own judge, not their applause committee. And that's why they felt uneasy. Because you were no longer performing for an audience. You were shaping something deeper, something quieter, something they couldn't measure. And that is what made them afraid. There comes a moment when you walk past a mirror and the reflection hesitates. Not because you look different, but because you felt different. Your old shadow lagged behind, confused, trying to catch up to a version of you it no longer understood. That's the price of growth. The old you loses its grip. And for the first time, you breathe without asking permission. That's when everything starts shifting. You didn't rise with fireworks. You rose with restraint, a kind that burns deeper than noise. You stopped carrying the weight that wasn't yours. You stopped defending choices you no longer believed in. And your shadow, oh, that poor thing stood there stunned, watching pieces of your old habits fall off like broken armor. You weren't transforming. You were revealing what had been hidden underneath. People thought you were losing yourself, but you were only losing the parts that never belonged to you. The parts you wore just to fit expectations, stitched by tired minds. You peeled them off with quiet precision, and suddenly the world felt colder, sharper, clearer. Your shadow panicked, because it wasn't built for this level of clarity. It was built to follow, not to evolve. You know what frightened them the most? The way you walked away from your own patterns. Not from people, from patterns. From the cycles that trapped you into repeating the same day again and again. You cut them like threads that had choked your progress. And your shadow tried to cling to them, desperate for familiar territory. But you stepped forward anyway. One breath, one choice, one shift at a time. It's strange when you outgrow your past. It feels like wearing clothes too small for your new spine. The world tries to force you back into shapes you no longer fit, but your silence sharpened, your choices matured, your vision cleared. You looked inward and found a version of yourself that didn't flinch at challenges, a version that didn't rely on old echoes to feel real. And that realization, it changed everything. Now your shadow follows you with caution, respect, maybe even fear, because it knows you no longer bend for comfort. You no longer cling to who you used to be. You're not running from your past. You're simply refusing to live in it. And deep down, your shadow understands the truth it never wanted to face. You didn't replace yourself. You surpassed yourself. There's a certain tension in the way people watch you now, a quiet suspicion, hiding behind their smiles. They don't ask direct questions anymore. They analyze, they observe, they pause for a second too long, as if trying to decode the outline of a mind they no longer understand. That's what happens when someone stops being predictable. Curiosity sharpens into caution. They used to think they knew your patterns, your reactions, your limits. But the moment you slipped out of the role they wrote for you, their confidence cracked. People love control more than comfort. And when they lose that control, they start studying you like a puzzle missing its corner piece. They listen to your silence. They trace your decisions. They check for weakness. But they find something else instead. You became harder to read, harder to manipulate, harder to place in their mental map of easy assumptions. And that bothered them deeply. Because when a person refuses to be predictable, they become powerful by accident. You didn't threaten anyone. You didn't boast. You just stopped giving them access to the parts of you that used to be wide open. And suddenly, they couldn't tell what you were planning. People study what unsettles them. They study what keeps them awake. Your calm became a riddle. Your decisions became signals they couldn't decode. They noticed the stillness in your eyes, the way you moved with intention instead of impulse, the way you spoke only when necessary. It forced them to wonder what changed. And once doubt enters their mind, fear isn't far behind. The strange part is this wasn't strategy. It was survival, a natural evolution, a shift born from exhaustion with old patterns. You learned to hold your thoughts like cards close to your chest. You learned to protect your energy instead of offering it freely. You learned that silence isn't weakness, it's structure. And they felt the firm edges of that structure every time they tried to box you in. They can't control what they don't understand. They can't understand what they can't access. And they can't access a mind that finally learned to guard itself. So now they watch you carefully, quietly, hoping to catch a glimpse of the old version they once predicted. But that version is gone. And all that remains is the calm mystery you've become. A mystery they study, because it refuses to kneel. The strange thing about progress is how quietly it arrives. It doesn't knock, it slips in like a shadow at noon, unnoticed but impossible to ignore. You didn't declare your rise, you didn't announce your growth. You simply stopped sinking. And that alone made the air around you tighten. People sensed movement before they saw results. They felt your shift like a gust of cold wind that whispers change. You worked in the hours no one cared about, The hours where truth becomes sharp and excuses fall apart. While others were waiting for motivation, you were building discipline. While they searched for shortcuts, you carved your own path with grit they couldn't comprehend. And that silence, that quiet climb, became the loudest signal they'd ever heard. Because nothing frightens people more than someone improving without needing applause. They didn't see your struggle. They didn't see the nights where doubt pressed against your ribs. They didn't see the battles you fought behind your own eyes. But they saw the results. They saw the steadiness in your posture, the clarity in your choices, the strength in your calm. And suddenly, the ones who once looked down on you couldn't look you in the eye anymore. That's what silent victories do. People fear what rises without noise. Noise gives them time to prepare, time to deny, time to justify. But silence? Silence ambushes them. It forces them to confront the fact that while they were repeating the same patterns, you were breaking yours. While they were laughing, you were learning. While they were waiting, you were advancing. And now they don't know how far ahead you actually are. Your success didn't humiliate them. Their lack of effort did. That's why the fear grew. Not because you became stronger, but because they stayed exactly the same. They don't fear your results. They fear what those results say about their own comfort. And the louder that truth echoed in their minds, the quieter they became around you. Respect and fear often share the same doorway. Now you walk differently. Not taller, just firmer. Not louder, just clearer. You don't need to announce anything. Your presence speaks. Your choices speak. Your progress speaks. And every silent victory you stack becomes another reason their confidence trembles. They thought you'd stay where they left you, but you rose quietly, and nothing is louder than that. There's a shift inside a person when they finally decide they don't need approval to exist. A shift that snaps like a wire pulled too tight for too long. You felt it, quiet at first, then sharp. You realized how much of your life was built on waiting, waiting for support, waiting for recognition, waiting for someone to nod before you moved. And the moment you stopped waiting, the whole world seemed to pause. They felt the crack before you admitted it. You didn't become louder. You became decisive. A mind that knows its direction doesn't need applause to walk. You trimmed away the noise, the doubts, the second guessing that kept you smaller than your own potential. And suddenly your steps carried weight. You weren't looking for confirmation anymore, you were looking for results. That alone separated you from everyone still trapped in hesitation. People didn't like this new version of you. Not because you changed, but because you stopped needing something from them. They were used to the version that asked, explained, justified. They recognized that version. It was convenient, predictable. But the moment you withdrew your need for permission, they lost their influence. And influence is a fragile treasure people guard with a clenched fist. Losing it makes them nervous. You learn something most never figure out. Waiting for approval is a leash disguised as courtesy. A leash that keeps your thoughts polite and your dreams delayed. You cut it, cleanly, and in that silence, the truth appeared. You never needed their acceptance. You just needed your own conviction. And once conviction arrived, everything else looked small, flimsy, irrelevant. Freedom didn't come with celebration. It came with clarity. The clarity that you can move without being guided, choose without being validated, build without being praised. You replaced uncertainty with intent. You replaced fear with understanding. You replaced delay with motion. And every step you took became a reminder that permission was never the gate. Your mindset was. Now people watch you differently. Some curious, some cautious, some quietly intimidated by your independence. They can't predict you anymore. They can't sway your decisions. They can't dim your direction, because you stopped asking if you were allowed to grow. And that one decision reshaped your entire path. You didn't revolt. You simply reclaimed what was always yours. Your choices, your voice, your life. Pressure forged a mind sharper than their assumptions. I learned early that silence cuts deeper than any roar. People fear the quiet because it leaves them alone with the truth they keep running from. I watch them pretend everything is fine while their thoughts tremble under the weight of secrets. They hide behind smiles that crack the moment no one is looking. I never needed a mask to admit what they deny. They call me twisted, but I just speak what they whisper. Every room I enter feels like a test they already failed. They cling to rules that were never written for them. They trust voices that never cared about their peace. I simply learned to read the fractures behind their calm faces. And once you learn to see the fractures, you can never unsee them. That is where the real story begins. People think pressure breaks a person, but pressure shapes. It sculpts. It sharpens. When the world pushed me into corners, I carved my way out with thoughts they fear to face. They say I smile at the wrong time, but I smile when the truth lands. When the mask they wear slips, when the excuses fade, because that is the moment a person reveals who they really are, raw and trembling before their own mind. I watched crowds move like they are following a script they never wrote. Step here, breathe there, pretend harder, pretend you are fine. And when they finally feel the weight pressing on their chest, they blame everything but their choices. I learned to stop pretending. I learned to stop borrowing fear from others. I embraced the pressure and let it carve me into something they couldn't explain, something they couldn't predict. Every thought I speak is a mirror they avoid. Every pause I take is a shadow they try to outrun. They don't fear me, they fear what my words unlock inside them. They fear the reflection that shows up when excuses fall silent. They fear the truth that surfaces when they stop running. And deep inside they know it. That is why my presence unsettles. It reminds them of the storms they keep swallowing. So here we are. You listening. Me revealing. And the pressure building between every word. You feel it. The shift, the pull, the quiet tension rising like sparks before a break. Don't look away now. The mind sharpens in moments like this, and that's the truth. They never wanted you to hear. The moment you stopped fitting their script, you finally started writing your own. If this hit you, stay with me, because the rest of this video cuts even deeper. Don't just watch, experience it. And before you go any further, drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice adds power to every moment we build here. You're the reason these words have weight. You're the strength behind this channel, and I appreciate you more than you know. Let's keep going.